Once upon a time, in the years following World War I, Germany faced severe economic turmoil. The Treaty of Versailles had left the nation humiliated, and its economy was in shambles. Hyperinflation plagued the land, and unemployment soared, leaving many Germans desperate and searching for answers. In this climate of uncertainty and despair, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, led by a charismatic figure named Adolf Hitler, began to rise. Promising to restore Germany's former glory and alleviate the suffering of its people, Hitler and his party garnered widespread support. Little did the populace know, behind these promises lay a dark and insidious agenda. As the Nazi Party gained momentum, their propaganda machine went into overdrive. Jews, who had long been scapegoated in times of crisis, became the targets of vicious and pervasive anti-Semitic rhetoric. Hitler's speeches and Nazi publications painted Jews as the root cause of Germany's woes, fueling an atmosphere of hatred and suspicion. The seeds of one of history's darkest periods were being sown, and a storm was brewing on the horizon. In the years to come, the world would witness the horrors of the Holocaust, a tragedy born out of prejudice, fear, and a ruthless desire for power. As the 1930s dawned, the Nazi Party's influence continued to grow. In 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany, marking the beginning of a new and terrifying era. The Nazis quickly moved to consolidate their power, suppressing political opposition and curtailing civil liberties. The Reichstag fire of 1933 served as a pretext for the Nazis to enact the Reichstag Fire Decree, which suspended many fundamental rights and allowed for the arrest of political dissidents. The Enabling Act, passed later that year, granted Hitler the authority to enact laws without the Reichstag's approval, effectively giving him dictatorial powers. Under Hitler's leadership, the Nazis implemented a series of policies aimed at purging German society of those they deemed undesirable. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 codified this exclusion, stripping Jews of their citizenship and prohibiting marriages between Jews and non-Jews. Jews were increasingly marginalized and isolated from the rest of society. The Nazis' grip on power tightened, and their vision of a racially pure Germany became ever more extreme. Propaganda continued to play a crucial role in shaping public perception, portraying Jews as dangerous enemies of the state. The stage was set for the atrocities that would follow. In the early 1940s, the Nazi regime intensified its persecution of Jews. Across occupied Europe, Jews were forcibly removed from their homes and herded into ghettos. These overcrowded and unsanitary districts were designed to isolate and degrade the Jewish population. Life in the ghettos was a daily struggle for survival. Families were crammed into small, dilapidated apartments, often without adequate food, water, or medical care. Disease and starvation were rampant, and the constant threat of violence loomed over the inhabitants. Despite these dire circumstances, the resilience and determination of the Jewish people shone through. Secret schools were established to educate children, and underground organizations formed to provide aid and resistance. Cultural and religious traditions were upheld, offering a semblance of normalcy and hope in the face of unimaginable adversity. But the ghettos were merely a temporary solution in the Nazis' grand scheme. As the war raged on, the fate of Europe's Jews would take an even darker turn, leading to the implementation of the final solution. In January 1942, high-ranking Nazi officials convened at the Wannsee Conference in Berlin to discuss and coordinate the implementation of the final solution to the Jewish question. This euphemism masked the true intent of their plan: the systematic extermination of the Jewish people. The Nazis had already begun mass deportations, sending Jews from the ghettos to concentration camps. These camps, such as Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor, were designed for efficient and industrialized murder. Upon arrival, most prisoners were immediately sent to gas chambers, while others were subjected to forced labor, medical experiments, and starvation. The scale of the atrocities committed in these camps was unimaginable. 6 million Jews, along with millions of others including Romani people, disabled individuals, political dissidents, and prisoners of war, perished in the Holocaust. The world would later come to know the full extent of these horrors, but at the time, the suffering and anguish of the victims remained hidden behind barbed wire and guarded gates. The final solution had cast a dark shadow over humanity, leaving an indelible mark on history. As World War II drew to a close in 1945, the Allies liberated the concentration camps, revealing the true extent of the Nazi regime's atrocities. The sight of emaciated survivors and piles of corpses shocked the world, underscoring the need for justice and accountability. In the aftermath of the war, the Nuremberg trials were held to bring Nazi war criminals to justice. High-ranking officials, military leaders, and other perpetrators of the Holocaust were charged with crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide. The trials set a precedent for international law and human rights, establishing that those responsible for such heinous acts would be held accountable. The Holocaust left a profound and lasting impact on the world. It served as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked hatred, prejudice, and totalitarianism. Memorials and museums were established to honor the victims and educate future generations about the horrors of the Holocaust, ensuring that such a tragedy would never be forgotten or repeated. In the wake of such darkness, the resilience and strength of the human spirit emerged as a beacon of hope. Survivors rebuilt their lives, communities came together to support one another, and the world collectively vowed to remember the lessons of the past.